A very warm welcome to all of you to this webinar that we are hosting, jointly hosting by Symbiosis Institute of Technology and Symbiosis Center for Applied Artificial Intelligence. First of all, let me give you a little glimpse about who we are and what we do and what kind of institution is this. So this is our campus, which is being showed in the first slide, and we are basically located in Pune. And Abhinav, can you click next? Yeah, next. Okay, so we are basically a pioneer engineering institution, which is, under Symbiosis International deemed university. And we are basically more than 11 plus years old now, and we are AICTE approved and reaccredited by NAAC with the A grade. Next. So these are the rankings, which is the SIU ranking, that is Symbiosis International Universities ranking, where we are 56th under the NIRF, whereas we are second in the private Indian universities according to QS World Ranking. As far as SIT is concerned, we are first among the most emerging private colleges of the century, and we are second among the private engineering colleges in the West Zone. Whereas according to the survey done by Outlook, we were first among all the private engineering colleges in Pune and are third among the private engineering colleges in Maharashtra, whereas 16th among the private engineering colleges in India. So what do? We basically are one of the research intensive engineering institutions, and we basically have intake for BTech, MTech, as well as for PhD. Next. Okay, now a quick glimpse about today's speaker. So today's webinar, basically the session would be taken by our director, Dr. Ketan Kotecha. And Dr. Ketan Kotecha is an IIT Bombay alumnus. He has done his PhD in AI and machine learning almost 20 years back. And he is currently the director of Symbiosis Institute of Technology, as well as he's also heading a research center, which is one of a kind research center. It basically works on applied artificial intelligence, and it is also co-located in SIT itself. So we have Symbiosis Institute of Technology in the Pune campus. It is the only engineering college and the only campus of engineering which is there under Symbiosis International deemed university. And under SIT, we have Sky Research Center also. So all the students who are there in SIT get the opportunity to work under this research center. So he's also Dean of Faculty of Engineering at Symbiosis International deemed university, as well as he is also CEO of one more very unique center that we have here at Symbiosis, that is Symbiosis Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation, which basically supports all these startups, technology startups. And he has been, recipient of lots of research grants such as Erasmus, LEAP grant, Duo, Spark projects. So because of this, what I can say, the tradition of research has strengthened in Symbiosis, especially at SIT. And research is something which is a day-to-day part of not only our faculties, but also of the students. And that too, not the PhD and MTech students, but BTech students as well. So over to you, sir. Let us start the session.
Okay, good morning everyone. Let me share my screen straight away. I'm sure it's visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible. Just a small instruction to everybody that I request that everybody please, concentrate on the presentation as well as the session. After that, we will be, if you have any of the questions in between, please post the questions in the Q&A box instead of the chat window. In Q&A box, we have our colleagues also who would be answering your questions, as well as once the session is finished, sir would also be taking up the questions.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining, because I know nowadays webinars are like everywhere, and it's not easy to even keep a track of webinars. But I heard that there are a large number of people join in this particular webinar, maybe because two reasons. One is artificial intelligence, which is I think is a great buzzword of 21st century. And it's also, the title shows that it is AI for all, right? So there are a lot of students. In fact, maximum number of students are there in the talk. So what I have done is I have tried to be very simple talk, and if somebody is learning for the first time, the basic goal should be to inspire the people by giving some fascinating applications, and that's what my goal is in next 1 hour of time, where I'll be showing some of the applications. Most of them are sold, and some of one or two are futuristic applications of artificial intelligence, which gives the idea to all of you that what you can contribute in this development of AI, and in turn development of Indian economy particularly. So this, as I think Dr. Shruti has mentioned, this is jointly organized by my own center and my institute, which is Symbiosis Center for Applied Artificial Intelligence, and also the Symbiosis Institute of Technology. This particular center is located on the third floor of this institute where I'm sitting today. And we have all the possible facilities in that center to do AI research, and there are more than 20 students and several faculty members of computer department and other departments are working with us. We have an state-of-the-art GPU to solve all the problems related to AI. This journey of artificial intelligence is not new. It is in 1950. I remember that there was an transition of IEEE on artificial neural network was there since 1950. But there is a change now. Artificial intelligence was there since 1950 to 1980. And then something has come which is called machine learning. And obviously the reasons behind that was computing power. And after 2010, the computation power is exponentially increased, GPUs and TPUs, and that's what we are talking about, deep learning now. Ultimately, the computation power requirement from artificial intelligence to deep learning is exponentially very high, and that's what is possible now. If I tell you the applications of AI, I think I can talk for not less than 50 to 100 hours because the applications of AI is everywhere. If you see transportation, if you see the retail space, if you see education now, even in software like plagiarism check, they are using artificial intelligence. All kinds of gaming, I'm sure students are very much interested. They are screen children. The gaming, a lot of AI is used. In media, suppose you want to find out fake news about corona, then of course you need to have AI algorithms to find out that. In hospitality management and all, like say predictive supply chain management, which is also a very hot topic right now because of the lockdown, that supply chain should be unaffected, so that prediction also is possible using AI, so on and so forth. In sports, in aerospace, in online shopping, in social networks, where the Facebook is suggesting you friends of friends as well, like-minded people coming together, everything is AI. So I don't think that you can now survive without AI in 21st century because every now and then any application you use right now is having AI. You use your smartphone knows everything about you, where you go, what are the transactions you are doing. Even if you delete your histories and chats and your WhatsApp, finally Now, Google knows everything, and I always tell that Google knows more about us than our mother or our spouse. Okay, and that's the only reason is artificial intelligence. So in case of cybersecurity, smart homes, event management, in politics and e-governance, everywhere AI is used. But there are two good news. One good news is it's not at all difficult to learn AI. And second good news is there are huge openings. In fact, after Corona and stumble right now, there'll be more opportunities to solve problems using artificial intelligence. And I think that's the reason I thought let's have a webinar on this. So what's artificial intelligence? First, artificial intelligence is a very broad term, and that is any technique whereby machine can solve the problem which right now human beings are solving. So it's a very, very broad term, right? So achieving like human level of intelligence by machine. Then came machine learning. So machine learning is nothing but an algorithm. If I give in a layman's definition, it is like you have IQ as a human being and you perform. But while performing, you also learn, right? Based on your positive and negative experiences. And that is machine learning. After that, the new thing has come, which is called artificial neural network. Of course, that's a part of AI or machine learning, which is like emulation of a brain. The way in which brain learns, your computer should also learn. And that's what whatever the skeleton of the brain, the learning mechanism of the brain, people have studied, researchers have studied. And then they try for machine to have an artificial brain so that whatever way we learn, machine can also learn. So again, it is a machine learning. And next, which has come is deep learning, which is very interesting. Reason is, in case of machine learning, you need to tell computer that what you want to learn and how it is to be learned. Both the things are to be specified. So first is goal and second is methodology. Both of them are to be told to the machine, and then machine learns, that is machine learning. But in case of deep learning, you are only telling machine what you want from machine. How is not to be specified. That's the power of deep learning, right? Because as a human expert in particular situation, if you tell the machine how to learn, then the learning is limited by your intelligence as a human expert, right? But you are not telling machine anything. It means machine will find out from the infinite possible combinations the most optimal and optimized answer. And that is what deep learning, and that's what is very, very powerful, right? So the difference is in machine learning, you need to tell computer what you want computer to do and how computer should do. So algorithm is also required. In case of deep learning, it is only supposed to ask machine what you are expecting from machine. You are not even supposed to specify how, right? So that's an important difference, which is also given in this particular figure. Those who have some exposure to the neural network can understand this, that in machine learning, after the inputs are given, the middle feature extraction is a very, very important portion. There are a lot of mathematics is required in case of feature extraction, right? And then there are a lot of books on that, how to extract the features. Okay, for example, if you want to train the machine to recognize human face, then you need to specify how the human face look like, how it is different than the animal's face. So all these things are to be specified to the machine if you are doing machine learning algorithms. But now, after the advent of deep learning, you are not even telling the machine that how human beings are look like. You need to just give a lot of examples of human faces, and machine will find out that this is a human face and the other faces are not human face. So that's the beauty of deep learning, that you are not specifying machine how the human face looks like, but at the same time, you need to give a lot of examples of human faces and other faces to the machine, and also tell that these are the faces of human and these are not the faces of human. And then machine automatically will find out after some iterations. And once the new face is given for human, it will identify that is a human face. Not only human face, now there are sophisticated algorithms that find out who is the human being as well. So a lot of applications in security at the airports and other places as well. It's a very, very vast discipline, machine learning. And there are three categories of machine learning which are widely used. One is called supervised learning. So in a nutshell, supervised learning is like a classroom teaching, whereby teacher is teaching, students are learning, and based on the expressions or gestures of the question answers posed by the students, teacher will change the direction of teaching, right? If it is not understood, he will slow down. If it is, let's say, too easy, he will increase his pace. So likewise, this is supervised. There is a continuous feedback from the teacher and from the learner. As opposed to that, in case of unsupervised learning, it's like a video lecture or it's like a webinar right now, what is going on. There is an expert right now teaching something, or trying to teach something, and there are recipients on the other side. So I'm sure something you will, but without any feedback as well, right? So there is no feedback possible right now in webinar, and that's what that is. But still there is a learning, and that's called unsupervised learning. There is a third category of learning, which is reinforced learning. At nutshell, if I want to explain that in a layman's language, it is like learning by doing. So for example, if you want robot to perform some particular task, you just give that task that, okay, you pick up that particular box. Robot will try. Initially, definitely it will fail, but it learns out of that. I tried like this, but I failed. So it will try some other random path. Again, it may fail. Third time, it may be successful. Once it is successful, the robot gets a reward that, okay, I could pick up the box if I went on this particular path. So from that combinations of success and failure, the machine adapts and learns like human beings are learning. And that is reinforcement learning. Right, so you need not to go in detail of that today because the agenda is very simple today. We will be telling about different applications of AI, which is used in any domain. It's not only computer engineering, in any domain, right? So that's a goal today. Here I have mentioned also a lot of applications of that. If you are doing supervised learning, which is a classification, it can be used in image classification, the face recognition, which I told, or identifying the fraud, or diagnosis in case of medical and healthcare, and several other applications. You can do regression also, which is a prediction, forecasting, that, okay, cyclone is going to come to Maharashtra or Gujarat after 2 days or something. So this kind of predictions are done using regression analysis. In supervised case, you can have a dimensionality reduction. That is one of the important aspects of that, which is also cater to the visualization of the data. If there's a huge amount of data, you want to visualize what is the internal structure. Definitely that's a useful algorithm. And clustering, whereby you can recommend. For example, you are going to shop something, then your smartphone remembers that, and then finally your friends will get the same recommendation because he's your friend, so maybe likings are same, right? So this kind of recommendation systems are also developed, and that is one way is to develop that is unsupervised learning. And all the robotic applications or gaming applications are the examples of reinforcement learning. So this is, in a very, very simple language, I try to explain what is supervised learning. You teach what is apple to the machine, and then you give a new apple, it will find out it's an apple. If it is unsupervised, you don't know the label of the fruit. So all the fruits are giving, maybe 3 categories of fruits is given as an input. Machine will find out that out of this, all the fruits, these 4 are looking similar. So they are one category. These 2 second are looking similar. So that's a second category. And these 3 are looking similar. So that's the third category. Right. So that's clustering. Even if you want to understand classification and clustering, like if some university is having grading system where 60 above is first class and 66% above is distinction, that is classification. But there are relative systems whereby the topper will get A grade, irrespective of the marks. That is clustering, right? So there are several ways to explain and understand. And believe me, machines are right now are extremely good, extremely powerful in doing this task. Better than human beings in many cases. And this is a third example of reinforcement learning, where you give some input, you ask the machine, is it mango? But it is not, it's an apple. So after several iterations, machine will try to correct the error itself, and that is what reinforcement learning means. There are a lot of algorithms which are useful in solving this kind of problems. Starting from the most important is support vector machines is very popular till deep learning was invented. It was dominating entire machine learning community since several years, but now after deep learning, people have done even better compared to support vector machines, which is nothing but neural networks training as well. There are k-means clustering, artificial neural network, there's so on and so forth, which is not the goal of this particular talk again. And in deep learning also, there are several algorithms, but these four are most popular: and convolution neural network, recurrent neural network, state autoencoders, and generative adversarial network. The convolution neural networks are extremely good at object identification. Right? Recurrent neural networks are extremely good at translating one text to another. If I want to convert, let's say, English to German or German to English online, live, it is possible using recurrent neural network and the variants of recurrent neural network, of course. If you want to find out the patterns and features, then autoencoders are very good in an unsupervised way. And the newly invented one, generative adversarial networks, are like I always tell them as a magic box. You see, they can do a lot of magic. There are a few examples I'll be giving later on. But if I give one example, if you give 1 page of text or 2 pages of text, and if you want to create an entire book, it's possible. Seems exaggeration, but it is possible using generative adversarial network. Of course, before that, a lot of training is required. So I'll be, talking now about the applications of AI in the daily life, because it is AI for all. The first and foremost application, because it deals with everyone, finance, right? Everyone would like to make money. So I'm starting with the finance. So in case of finance, AI is used everywhere. These are all applications which are already solved. Of course, you can do better and better in that. First is advisory boards. If you go to a banking application, there will be a chat bot. It will guide you, let's say ICICI or any other bank. It will guide you to the next step without any human intervention. So these are advisory bots, which chat bots, which are available. Algorithmic trading is very popular. You need not to sell or buy stocks, because in fraction of time you have to sell and buy. Those who are doing daily trading maybe, but there are algorithms which can do effectively. You predefine something, and algorithm will make money for you, right? So that is already available. If you want to prevent the money laundering, after that we want to promote digital economy. So if you want to prevent that, then also algorithms are used to find out the outliers. In risk management, for your finance, the AI is used. Fraud detection, if your credit card, somebody has used that credit card and you want to find out a fraud, then definitely AI is used, which is an outlier detection. It's based on your previous transaction history. Generally, you are withdrawing 20,000 rupees for a bank, but one day it is just suited up maybe to 50,000 or 1 lakh. There'll be definitely an alert to you. And that is also an application of artificial intelligence, right? And if you have a lot of money, you want to invest in the stock, and after investing, you like to predict, right? Even before investing, rather, you need to predict the prices of the stock. So that is also possible using, artificial intelligence. So these are some of the applications which are already solved, already available in market, which uses AI. Second application, diverse, that is from civil engineering. You want to have your city smart. There are several cities like Ahmedabad, Pune, and there are several others, Bangalore. They are going to be, and they are started to be smart cities. So what does it mean? Smart city means what? Everything related to AI. You need to have a smart manufacturing in that particular city, right? So your manufacturing companies should adopt AI. You should have a smart governance. So e-governance, which we are talking about, that also should use AI. Your mobile network, Wi-Fi network should be their entire city. Your your citizens need to be smart, right? You need to be, behave and guided smartly by all the activities which you are doing. And right now, the smart activity is social distancing, right? So using AI, you should be able to find out that these two people are keeping the 6 feet distance or whatever the distance is suggested by the government to prevent and fight against corona, right? Smart health, definitely if the city is smart, the healthcare also should be smart. Agriculture within that town must be very smart. Your buildings needs to be smart, right? So buildings should consume lesser power. Okay, automatically it should reduce the, optimize the power consumption of the building. That's a very, very important aspect in civil engineering where definitely AI is used, right? And a lot of other places as well. And smart transportation, which is also a next slide, that this is a backbone of the smart city. If you are discussing a smart city, it is called ITS in general, which is an intelligent transportation system, where you have a car which is driven autonomously, maybe, or semi-autonomously. You get the alerts that, okay, there is a traffic jam ahead. You get the alerts that there is a traffic ahead and you take an alternate route. Okay, there will be a surveillance now in the city that you are wearing mask or wearing helmets or not. So a lot of other things automated can be done using artificial intelligence. You see, it will be very, very time consuming and boring as well to visualize the cameras which are there at every side lights and just to find out that people are wearing helmets or not, or now mask or not. But believe me, AI algorithms can definitely and easily find out from all the cameras that, okay, this particular person is not wearing that, right? So this is all AI applications, and there are several more possible if you really want to develop an intelligent transportation system. Augmented reality, we are moving towards that. I need not to go to theater now, maybe because of Corona, but my home can be a theater. I can be visually feeling that I am within a theater is one of the application. I'm sure students are using a lot augmented reality in gaming, that you feel you are inside the game. So this is an application of, again, artificial intelligence, and there are several other things also involved in this. Coming back to mechanical engineering, everywhere AI is used. First, in increasing the production, how to optimize the assembly. For example, if Maruti is producing 1,000 car a day in a particular plant, how to make it 1,500, let's say. It's an optimized, and that is possible using very sophisticated AI algorithms, optimization algorithms. Reduction of downtime. Let's say there is a machine which is producing a lot of items, and what you can do is you can put a lot of sensors around the machine, take the data and predict there's any particular part of that machine is going to fail after 3 days or not. That is now possible, which is called predictive maintenance as well, right? So if you know that beforehand using AI, what you can do is you can replace that part. So your downtime will be limited. Tremendous advantage. Those who are in mechanical background, they will understand there is a huge advantage of reducing this downtime. It's $1 million for a company, right? Of course, it's based on the size of the company. You eliminate the breakdowns because you are doing it predictively. You reduce the maintenance cost as well, because a priori you know that after 4 days this part is likely to go bad. So you can do effective supply chain and effective maintenance as well, and maintenance contract as well, right? So ultimately, finally, it will be a better ROI for you. It is return of investment, right? So there are applications in manufacturing, but believe me, one of the slides, last slide will tell that only around 20% or 25% of the mechanical industries have started using AI, even though they know the benefits of AI, but they are not using. One reason is it's extremely difficult to get trained manpower in AI, right? And that's the reason they are not. So there is a huge demand in mechanical industry, not only for mechanical engineers, but mechanical engineers with AI background, right? Industry 4.0 is a buzzword again, where also AI is used everywhere. As I mentioned, in failure detection, in robotic applications, in quality control, warehouse movement from your warehouse to your company, optimized movement of the parts so that your production will not be at halt. In very important is supply chain. I'm sure that you'll be surprised to know that in a country like India, around 30 to 40% of the fruits and vegetables which are grown are get wasted just because there is no enough supply chain. It's so much surprising, but it is true, right? That supply chain needs to be very, very effective because they are all perishable commodities and it requires faster processing time to reach to the destination. So which is failed just because there are no technology used effectively right now, but AI can solve that particular problem as well. This generative design at last, which I written, it's very, very important. You see, this is generative design. You see, the first figure shows that you are generating a seat bracket manually. After the arrow, whatever has been generated, that is generated by a computer. So that's generated by a deep learning algorithm. What you need to specify that what are the functionalities of seat bracket to the computer. You need not to specify what should be the design. Computer will find out from the infinite possibilities that which is the most comfortable, most economical design for a seat bracket, and it will give you that particular figure, and then you can print using 3D printer. The second figure, the below figure is, let's say, Formula 1 car. It should be lightweight, it should have this particular speed, it should be safe as well. You need to specify all possible parameters, but your AutoCAD designer uses deep learning algorithm to find out the best possible design, which is having a least resistance to air, so aerodynamic principles, all these things need to give us an input. But finally this design is generated indigenously by a software, no human intervention. That is called generative design. That's a very, very upcoming field in case of mechanical engineering now, which is an, of course, augmentation of mechanical engineering and artificial intelligence. The most booming right now is AI for healthcare. Is not because of Corona, otherwise also since last couple of years, there are a large number of applications coming up where AI has shown a success in case of healthcare as well. Believe me, here it's not replacing doctor, which is impossible, but is augmenting the capabilities and the competencies of the doctor. So if it is used in diagnosis, let's say Stanford University has developed an application whereby you take a photograph of your skin and find out there's a skin cancer or not. That's all. Right? So it's a variant of convolution neural network, deep learning, and the application is available right now. And Stanford University has published a paper in Nature journal, which is the world's best journal. And they have claimed that the accuracy which is given by the algorithm is higher compared to any other skin specialist around the world. Right? So that's a significant achievement. So again, still, I don't think it will replace the doctors. But you see, in case of very life-threatening disease, we used to take a second opinion, third opinion of a doctor. But now, if this kind of softwares are available with the doctor can consult that AI algorithm and just validate the reasons, so build up a more confidence as well. I'm sure we have seen in the movies, but now it's a reality about assisted robot surgery as well. Nursing. It's very difficult to get a good nurse, and the numbers are not sufficient, and that's what people have developed a software which is performing as good as nurses, right? Of course, it's not a replacement, but still there are a lot of activities which can be automated, have been automated in that particular software. Of course, in admin work, AI can be used in healthcare as well. And the most important thing is in India, compared to what it should be, WHO tells there should be one doctor per 10,000 population, but I think India is having very, very less, 0.48 maybe. So we have less than half of the doctors. So if you use this AI in healthcare kind of applications, I'm sure that it will speed up the processing right now. Right now also we are facing, I think, some issues related to testing of the corona. But if somebody can find out some solution using AI, I'm sure it will be a great help. And predictive analysis is done also by Google, whereby it can predict that maybe after 5 years, if after 10 years, you'll have this kind of problems with your body, right? Of course, no application using AI can give you 100% answers, 100% accuracy rather, right? And that is not possible by human doctor also. I don't think doctor will tell you with 100% guarantee that after 5 years you'll have this, right? So don't expect some of the things which are, to be better than human beings. If AI can do equal to human beings, then also we are done, right? So there are several applications of that sort. This has been demonstrated by Google. It's very, very popular picture. I'm sure several of you must be knowing. You take an image of your retina and you can find out your age, your sex, your smoking habits, your BMI, everything. Just by a simple scan, which has been completely demonstrated by Google. Believe me, this particular application is developed by Google by taking data from Bangalore, and after making this, it has been sold back into Bangalore, right? So we have to learn out of it, which is a hint for making India, because for India, the biggest advantage in adopting AI is data. You see, AI requires, I'll just take a break here, AI requires two most important things. First is big data, huge amount of data is required, and second, it requires messy problem to solve. If there is a simple problem, there is no need to use AI. And I think India is having both. There are a lot of messy problems which India needs to solve. And second, because of large population, we are at the advantage right now. We generate huge amount of data, huge amount of unstructured data, diverse data, and that is highly required before you start using AI. So we are at very good advantage right now in adopting AI for all various applications which I told. It can be used for law as well. I always tell that law in this country is slowest, and technology like AI is developing fastest. So there are two extremes. One is slowest and one is fastest. So if there is a marriage between these two technologies, I'm sure a lot of miracles can be done, particularly because AI algorithms are very good at deductive logic. If something is there, it can derive something better. And in law also works in a deductive logic. For example, if you file a case, let's say in High Court, what High Court judge or lawyers need to do, they need to find out a similar case in Supreme Court and what is the judgment given there. So finding similar is very easy by AI. And that's what I am sure that there are a lot of applications getting developed in case of law as well. There are a lot of applications available as well for helping the lawyers to expedite the cases. Some of them amazing applications which are getting developed. One of them, the car maker, very popular car maker of the world. What they are making now is making a robot which will do surgeries automatically, right? So there is no exaggeration. You can go to that website and you can search. They are almost about to deliver this application, or rather robots, which will do the surgery without any human intervention. Wearable device. This is just a startup from French. Is available now in market. It's a bracelet which can work as a mobile. So there are cameras, there are projectors. You just wear it and you can use that as a mobile, right? So this is again definitely an AI application, and of course electronics. A lot of electronics here and AI. Stanford University is using AI and machine learning to predict the occurrence of solar flares as well. So what I'm trying to tell here is it's everywhere. You can use AI. Once you know AI as a tool, you can apply in any possible application. This is a personal robot which will do all the household day-to-day activities. I'm sure right now it is most useful in Corona days if you have it at home, and that can do daily activities indigenously, autonomously as well. Amputation of leg done successfully. The person can even learn how to walk and how to run after amputation. That's a remarkable achievement. So, a band using robots, music band, people are trying all kinds of applications, right? This application I really like the most. This application is called LeapNet, which is available in market now. Based on your leap movement, computer speaker will speak what you are trying to speak. Of course, there's a training. The training is done when you speak. Computer learns your lip movement and what you are speaking. And finally, if somebody loses his vocal cord, you just move your lips in front of your mobile on a camera, and the mobile speaker will speak what you intend to speak. Right? It's $1 million application. So that is available. With now the accuracy which is written is very low, but now there's the accuracy which is almost 97% or even higher maybe now. We are an agriculture country, and that's the reason I think in spite of a lot of lockdowns, I don't think there is a problem with food in the country. Whatever was there before 3 months, right now also we are at the same position just thanks to the farmers and the nature of the agriculture we are having in this country. So there's a huge scope of applying AI into that as well, and it has been used as well. For example, disease detection. So by taking a photograph of a leaves of a plant, you can find out disease is possible now or it is increasing now, so you can take the preventive measures. Crop is ready or not, by taking a photograph on a drone, you can find out. So these are all image processing applications. It means again artificial neural network or convolution neural network. Health monitoring of a plant, irrigation schedule of a plant, crop classification. Right. For example, I have seen an application in UK whereby if there are potatoes and McDonald's wants to buy that potato, the quality of the potato is important for making a French fries. So automatically done by a photograph, right? Which is an image processing application again, and that is AI. Right. So there are numerous applications already been applied AI in case of agriculture, but there are further scopes as well. For example, I always tell this application as well, there's a huge stack of wheat. Take a photograph and find out what is the weight of that. That's all. You need not to go to a weighing scale and do the weight, but take a photograph. So this application is very, very easily possible to solve using artificial intelligence. Somebody has done an indigenous walk here. You can search for Alex Graves from Toronto. What he has done, he has trained the neural network. I'll not go in detail of this, but he has trained the network to create his own handwriting. After the application is developed, if he speaks in front of a computer, computer types, which is not difficult, right? Right now also on WhatsApp, we don't type, we just speak and WhatsApp types. But right now, the person what he has demonstrated is the typing, the characters, the style of the font is of that person, right? It means what? It's a miracle. So your checkbook signatures are going to be invalid after this. Everyone has seen this application on Gmail. Now it is available in desktop version as well. Earlier is launched with the mobile version where you just read an email, you get 3 options for replying automatically, right? So that is also an application which is AI. Believe me, if you change your replies, suppose every time you are writing yes, in place of that you write yes over a coffee. After a few days, one of the option will be yes over a coffee. So your algorithm learns your replies as well, and accordingly it gives the answers to you, suggestions to you. If you want to find out the recognition, face recognition, what are the expressions, we can find out. So in the classroom, if I take a video, I can find out how many of you are happy in classroom, or how many are sad, or how many of you are angry at the teacher because of several reasons. Everything is possible to find out now. Very popular characters which are available in the movies, kids movies. What do you think? If you take this kind of images from Google, and if you make a movie, and if movie is successful, the creator of this picture will ask you for the royalty. So you can't take a picture from the Google and you can just put it in a movie or somewhere and you can make money. It's not possible. It's not allowed, right? It's a violation or infringement in case of patent when the pictures are copyrighted. So there are algorithms using GANs, generative adversarial network, which creates this kind of indigenous pictures which are not available at all in Google. If you want to have a visual question answering, it's an application of deep learning, which is using multimodal fusion, where there's a picture and there is a question. The question is, where is the giraffe? And the answer is in the grass or whatever, right? So this visual question answering is going to be booming now after online teaching learning is happening in schools as well. And that is definitely an application of deep learning. Now we have seen several applications here. What are the limitations? What are the limitations and what are the future directions for solving them? The first important limitation, which I already indirectly mentioned, is data. Data and data labeling, which are listed here both. Obtaining massive training data, which I already mentioned that it's very, very comfortable relatively for Indian context, but in general it is very difficult. And second is data labeling. Once you get a data, who will label that? Suppose you get a data of the chest X-rays of corona patient, but somebody has to, label that also, right? So labeling and obtaining the data is a massive task, which is called pre-processing in case of artificial neural network or artificial intelligence. Second problem is explainability. For example, if somebody goes to a doctor tells that, okay, you have this particular disease, XYZ. Story doesn't end there. What doctor does, doctor explains that why you caught up with disease, right? If you have a machine learning algorithm, machine will predict that, okay, you have a disease. But right now, that explanation part is missing. So in front of machine, you put your X-ray, machine will tell you have this and this disease. But why I have caught up with this disease, machine is not been able to explain, right? So there's a new branch which is called explainable AI, which is very, very important now in all the machine learning algorithms. So that's also a limitation right now. Of course, at SIT, we have a very good project, funded project from MHRD, Government of India, which is on explainability in case of healthcare, right? Which we are solving using university in Australia. Of course, we are at halfway right now. Then generalization of learning. Whatever has been learned by the algorithm, it has been generalized or not. Okay, otherwise, a lot of important cases will be missed. For example, if you have a transaction data of some particular user, okay, but not all the data, then some of the outliers will be missed, and that will be a bottleneck in the algorithm. So that is also a limitation if you are not training the algorithm very well. The fifth one, which is very recent and now entire AI community at the threat, and that is vulnerable to attacks. AI algorithm can be hacked very, very easily somehow. So if it is so, for example, there is a car which is driven autonomously by an algorithm, and somebody hack and disable the sensor and it knocks, right? So this will be a problem right now. Also, if there is a traffic sign which is stop, but somebody hacked and make it green signal, okay, then car will pass from the crossing, even though there is a red light there. So these are all the attacks which are possible right now. And before deploying any machine learning algorithm, it's very, very now required to protect this kind of algorithms first before the deployment. So that's a very important area which we call as adversarial machine learning. There's a huge amount of data bias, which is the next problem. For example, if the Stanford develops an application for skin cancer, most of the samples are taken from the white skin, right? But a person from India, a person from Nigeria goes and use that application, the accuracy is suffered. Should not be, right? So there should be very diverse data, and the application should be very diverse. It cannot be biased towards one particular ethnicity, one particular gender, or anything like that, right? So, but still it is present right now because it is limited by the amount of data, diversity of data. And that's what also I told that in India, it is better because we have very diverse population, diverse interest, and several things are diverse compared to several other countries. And that's what it is good that you have a diverse data so that your robustness of the algorithm is achieved. There's one more, interesting bias here. Most of the AI robots which are developed, Sophia and all, they are all women. I don't know why they have not created men. So there is some inherent bias everywhere in this society. And the last limitation, there may be more, of course, it's not exhaustive list, the last from my slide, is art is missing. Art stands for accountability, responsibility, and transparency. Who knows that the algorithm which is developed for autonomous car is transparent and responsible as well, right? So there are very difficulties. Who knows that the algorithm which is developed for finding the medical application, diagnosis a particular disease, is not biased. For example, somebody can always develop an application where even though there is no positive disease, algorithm will tell it is positive. What is the guarantee? Because it is limited by the developers. So developers need to learn a lot of humanities and social science before applying to the real world. So this is also a limitation, and we will check that. So there are a lot of limitations as well. It means I would tell these are opportunities for further development in case of artificial intelligence. So there are a lot of research directions where in future AI will develop. One is I already mentioned, in case of explainable AI, the algorithm should not only predict, it should also explain why this prediction is. Then deep reinforcement learning, which is a combination of machine learning, deep learning with reinforcement learning. That is definitely a future. GANs, as I mentioned, it can create miracles, generative adversarial networks, which can generate something. People are also trying that you give a description of a flower and flower image is generated by GANs. Okay, there is a very, very good success, almost 80% success here. And so you can imagine that you give some particular keywords and it can generate your BTech or MTech thesis, right? So this is possible using GANs now. Adversarial machine learning, I already told that there are a lot of attacks in case of on machine learning algorithms. So it should be prevented, and that is also in research area. Sentiment analysis, that is an coming up area. So we were feeling when AI was launched that AI will take care about IQ of a person, but now there are a lot of demonstrations which also tells that even sentiments it can find out. Algorithms will not have sentiments itself, but it can find out the human sentiments. Twitter sentiment analysis is one of the example. So if it can find out, then there are more applications. For example, one of my students is solving right now, before 5 years, we develop an AI algorithm which predicts the stock market, predicts the stock Reliance prediction, right? What will be the next 5 days movement of Reliance stock? Let's say we did it before 5 years. Now what we are embedding is sentiments, because most of the time the stock market particularly depends on the sentiments of a person. Right now the sentiments is lockdown is open, so corona is gone, and that's what market is increasing since last 1 week, I think. So these sentiments, if you give as an input, that it will make the algorithm even better, right? Particularly a stock market scenario which I am giving. So this analysis is also possible using artificial intelligence. Then multimodal fusion, I already gave one application of that, whereby you ask the questions from a picture. But for example, if you get some particular news in WhatsApp, you want to find out the news are credible or not, you need to go to the other source, maybe Times of India, or maybe go to the Aaj or somewhere. So if algorithm needs to do that, it has to combine different modalities, the information from different variant sources, which is multimodal fusion, is one of the multimodal fusion type, and there are several others. If you want to, use AI, as I mentioned several times, you need to have a large amount of data, and large amount of data is possible if you use sensors everywhere. Put the sensors all across, get the data. So if there is a marriage between Internet of Things, IoT, and artificial intelligence, I am sure that huge amount of data is possible to get, and we are working in that as well. Industry 4.0, healthcare. As I mentioned, only 20 to 30% of the industries maximum are using AI right now, but there are huge scope. But the same industries those who are using can go for sophistication, or the industries which are not using artificial intelligence can now use that to increase the productivity. This one slide I have taken from McKinsey, which is supposed to be the world's leading company for giving the predictions about the economy and about several other things. So this graph tells that in travel and tourism, in education, only 10 to 15% industries are using AI. The highest one is in communication or financial services, obviously, right? In financial services, highest is even 28%. So 28% of the financial industries are using AI. So these also need to be up to 100%, right? So there's a huge scope. All the industries are facing a lot of crunch of manpower, trained manpower in case of artificial intelligence. If you want to use this artificial intelligence, what you need to learn? You need to learn only one programming language, which is Python, right? There are several other libraries available along with that, which can be integrated in Python, which is TensorFlow or Skylern or Keras or PyTorch. There are several variants, right? Which are very easy to learn. Most of the things are available ready-made. If you want to find out and develop an AI application, which can find out this is a cat and this is human being, I think the line of code required is 10 lines. 10 lines, right? It means coding is very limited. Everything is available online to be used free of cost on GitHub and other places. You can download the code, customize to your needs, and you can use that. Even the models of machine learning, you need not to learn. They are available free of cost, coded. You can just call as a function. If you don't want to even take a pain of installing Python, version change, and other things, now the Google has come up with Google Colab, which is browser based. On a Google browser, you write Google Colab, put your Python code and run. That's all. GPUs and even TPUs are given as free there by Google. Of course, right now there are GPUs and TPUs in a restricted way, but it is given free. Write a code on your browser. Nothing is required to be installed. Nothing is absolutely zero, and that's all. Of course, it requires that you should have a Gmail account. That's all. So if you have a Gmail account on your drive, if you put on your Google Drive, if you put your Python code, and if you double click that, it will run in Google Colab. As simple as that. Nothing to be installed, right? So that is a fantastic tool right now. For starting, definitely you can work with that. Lot of learning resources, deeplearning.ai. There are 7 courses now by Andrew Ng. Andrew Ng is a scientist who is contributor in Google, development of the Google, works at Stanford University, and developed Baidu also for China. So he's a very renowned person. I would say always #1 in case of artificial intelligence. So his courses are available, very nominal charge on deeplearning.ai. His video lectures are available on Coursera and YouTube as well on machine learning, that is free of cost. And there are other blogs as well. So you can learn. Resources are not as an issue at all. There are thousands and thousands of resources available free to learn artificial intelligence. A lot of blogs, if you want to start towards data science and Medium, they are very popular blogs. Regularly, almost every day, they post one article in artificial intelligence. So what are the future jobs? I always tell, even being in working in computer science department, that coding jobs are going to be extremely limited. If I give an analogy, which I always give, how many jobs are there right now of typewriter? That number of jobs will be there for codings in next 5 years of time. Does not mean that you should not know the basics of flowchart and all. You must know. You must be knowing extremely well one particular language. But right now there are huge number of coding jobs, which is going to be very shrinking and almost going to zero in 1 decade maybe. The most important thing in 21st century is question dominates the answer. What I always tell is in 21st century, given a problem, it's not so difficult to solve because tools are available. AI is a tool. But finding a right problem to solve, so that if you solve that particular problem, you can make money, it can be innovation. That is most difficult. And how we can learn this? It's not possible to learn if you do only engineering. It is only possible to know the problems of society if you know human engineering, and that is what liberal arts, psychology, everything. If I want to analyze the sentiments of a people in AI, I need to know how to quantify sentiments. What are the sentiments mean, which is never been taught till date in engineering. It is human psychology, which is taught in liberal arts. And that's the reason I think the AICTE and other UGC now are forcing engineering institutes to teach other than engineering as well. Because finally the goal of the engineering is what? To solve the human needs and to make the human life better. Without understanding what human needs, how we will make technology which are adopted by human beings and make the life comfortable for the human beings. So of course we have of course SIT, and I'm sure several leading universities have large number of courses. I started with NIRMA when I was working before almost now 5 years. So before almost 8 years, we have included large number of humanities courses in the curriculum of engineering of BTech. And at Symbiosis also, we have large number of courses. In fact, every semester there is a course on humanities and social science, because that importance of this particular course will engineers are realizing once they are going to the companies. What are the career avenues after you know AI? Of course, you can work as an engineer. There is a huge demand after BTech or after MTech. But it's very, very easy now to have a startups, because there is an ecosystem. Government wants to promote startups. For the first time in this country, there are extremely easy rules for filing an income tax, and that is only for startups, right? Government jobs, looking for that. Before 3 days only, Government of India has launched AI Mission, a website where there are a lot of opportunities given for AI. In the budget, there is a provision exclusively for one technology, and that is only AI. In the last budget, if you see carefully. Academic jobs, how to teach AI, we are finding difficult right now to get good manpower, means in general, as an education institute. You can study further, master's, PhD in AI, and you can become scientists as well. In our research center also, we can have a scientist working exclusively on research, not teaching even. That is also possible. I'm sure there are a large number of students here, and they must have some questions. So we, based on my previous experiences of the webinars and all, I have handcrafted some of the questions and some of the answers here. So maybe last 5 minutes, let us discuss that before I take the questions from you. The first questions people ask me, and the students ask me, is if I'm interested in artificial intelligence. I'm sure most of you and the studio joined here. Then I must do computer science engineering or need to have some computer science background? That is the first question, because somehow computer is in limelight, and that's what, it's not easy to get computer engineering in a good college, right? My answer here is simply no. Reason is AI is a tool, right? It's like, I cannot tell Microsoft Word belongs to computer engineering. So now no longer I can tell that AI means computer engineering, right? AI is a tool. If you want to develop a smart city, you need to know civil engineering. You need to know transport engineering, right? If you want to develop an industry 4.0 application and robotic application, a car, anything else related to mechanical, you need to know mechanical engineering very well. You also learn AI as a tool and then apply. So I would say, if you really want to make a career using AI, you should have a domain knowledge of one particular area, maybe civil engineering, maybe electronics engineering, or maybe any other engineering, a very hardcore knowledge, learn AI and then apply that. Only if you know AI, where will you apply? It's like Microsoft Word, but what you would do with this? Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Access, but what you will do that with that knowledge? Unless otherwise some civil engineer will tell that, okay, give me this calculation and make the sheet for me, right? So the basic core knowledge is mandatory, and on top of that you learn AI. That will be the ideal combination. So just don't drag to computer science. You can always go there, but just not because you want to learn AI and because you want to use AI, right? Marketing guys are using AI more right now, right? Because they find out what is your interest and they work accordingly, right? So this is what is AI, whereby you use as a tool, have a domain knowledge, and then mixed it up. Second question is, instead of 4-year long degrees, if I do an AI ML course, then what would be sufficient or not? Yeah. So you see, it is like you learn something today for 6 months. There are a large number of courses of AI, right? And you need to apply to some technology. That technology from where you will learn. You know AI is a tool by having some certificate program from outside, 6 months, 3 months, 1 year, Rapid, Grace, there are several. But where you will apply? So the engineering mindset is missing there. So unless otherwise, as I mentioned in the previous slide, that you need to know the problem best. Finding the problem in 21st century is more important than solving. So if you have this kind of certificate programs, you know how to solve, but which problem you will solve? I will never advise, because your engineering mindset is highly required. Whatever you learn engineering, large number of assignments you solve, large number of teachers are giving you a lot of pressure, I'm sure, in engineering. That all these things are required, which will go with you lifelong. The problem solving ability. And for that, I don't advise only a short course somewhere. You enroll for engineering and then along with that you do course, it is perfectly fine. Suppose, for example, in our institute, if you do mechanical engineering, we have an option to have a certificate program offered in AI by computer engineering department. You can take very well as an additional course and then learn that tool, apply in your mechanical engineering. Yes, that is possible. After diploma, why should I go for degree? Instead, I can do certificate course and start working. So which is same, unless otherwise you do very thorough engineering, you will not be able to understand engineering. So your application which you learn, a tool which you learn, will not be possible to implement. So answer is almost similar here. Now there is an interesting question. If my maths is weak, which is general, which should not be ideally, because we are in India right now, we are supposed to be the best in mathematics compared to several developed countries as well. But if it is weak, I can't learn AI at all. I would say now the situation is reached in such a way that even with a little maths, you can use AI in most of the application. Even though earlier I was also not believing when I was a student of IIT, because IIT means, you know, a lot of mathematics. But now slowly the algorithm has moved in such a way, such an abstract level, that even without much mathematics, I'm sure you can learn AI as a tool and you can implement it as well. Maybe you can definitely be successful without mathematics if you use AI in Industry 4.0. But if you want to be super successful, again, if you want to develop an indigenous application, again, I'm sure mathematics is required, right? And the last question is future is only AI ML engineering? Is not only AI ML engineering. I think future is for engineers for sure, for making this life better, any engineering, in fact. But at the same time, those who are engineers, you know, there will be two kinds of engineers. Engineers with AI as a tool and engineers without AI as a tool. So those engineers who learn also AI will, I think, surely dominate those who are not knowing that. That is for sure, because AI is everywhere. That will be my answer here. So what is there for you at our institute and at my Center of Artificial Intelligence? We offer internship. We have a student from Gujarat as well, I think from GSET, who is doing internship with us in AI Center. We offer BTech projects, not only to our students, for outsiders as well, on a very competitive basis. We expose them to our research and live projects as well in AI. Of course, most welcome for MTech and PhD research as well. So even our BTech students, I forgot to mention that our BTech students are also doing internship with us, either final year project with us, and also they are publishing papers in Scopus kind of papers as well. We offer certificate programs in all disciplines, like we have in, of course, in artificial intelligence, but at the same time, let's say we have it in smart, cities as well. Smart cities means it is civil engineering is offering, but of course, couple of courses will be taught by AI Center or computer engineering department. We have a very specialization courses. For example, if you do BTech with us, we have a specialization in artificial intelligence as well. Right? If you do, mechanical with us, then also you can have several electives from artificial intelligence. So even if you do electronics, of course, electronics is having in structure, AI as a course, maybe next semester as well. So there's always an amalgamation of all these things. We have very strong semester abroad program where for 6 months students are going abroad and we do the credit transfer. And the most important thing is startup. On the 3rd floor of our building here, we have an incubator where if you have an idea, we give all the facilities which is free of cost to the students because we got a huge grant from Government of India to establish that, the equipment, the mentoring, how to file a patent. For that, whatever money is required, a patent attorney is sitting there on the patent person who knows how to file a patent is sitting on the 3rd floor. So everything is possible at our institute if you have an idea. Believe me, a couple of students of those who are in 1st year and 2nd year of our institutes, they have started their own company, right? And they are from, one of them is from Maharashtra, one of them is from Gujarat as well. They have started their own company and they are 1st year or now they are in 2nd year students of our institute only. So that's all. I think this is all from my side. Any questions, you can write to us. You can see our website, sitpune.edu.in, or my Sky website, sky.edu.in. And the last, I will end with this quote by Andrew Ng again. Of course, I'm a fan of him because he is the one who is pioneering AI. And he's the one who has also co-founded Coursera. So you can imagine the stature of that particular person who has written that artificial intelligence will transform every industry, just as electricity did before 100 years. Between now and 2030, AI will create an estimate of 13 trillion GDP growth, $13 trillion US dollar GDP growth. Right? So with that, I will end my talk. I'm sure there'll be some questions. If you have, you can ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. This has been one of the most insightful sessions that we all might have attended. And basically, a student or a professional or a faculty of engineering, everyone would have taken back some of the key points from your presentation, definitely. And we have almost 90+ questions. So I would try to collate the questions so that some of the important questions can be answered. Now, one of the important questions that has been asked is that why AI is always limited to applications in healthcare or applications in transportation. Why not AI is still not applied to a very basic day-to-day life what we can say activities like urban water supply, or might be the coordination of vaccinations and all these things.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. You see, the problem with AI is it can work very well in a very, very focused domain. And focused domain means like unlike human beings, right now we can do several tasks together, but AI can't. AI needs to be very focused. In that focused domain, a lot of data for training and learning is required for that particular task. Otherwise, it is very, very limited, right? So I'm sure the data may not be available. And second reason is common sense kind of tasks. AI cannot do as of now, thanks to that, because human beings are better in that case. Of course, the common sense is very uncommon, but still human beings are, really, really very good at that, which is a very futuristic task for AI. So it leads to something called generalized artificial intelligence, which is not easy right now for a computer. And that's what is a good news for us, that we cannot be, never been replaced by computers or artificial intelligence.
Thank you so much, sir. Now the next question is that will AI be totally replacing the physical labor in future, especially in India? And if yes, then how it will affect all the human beings who are basically working as physical labor?
No, human labor definitely, finally, maybe in the decade or two couple of decades, will be taken care by AI algorithms and robots for sure. But I think it will increase the living standards of us. I don't think people will be jobless. You see, I always give an example whereby there was a software implemented in banks, and the bankers were feeling that now the job will be lost. I can even show you some cuttings, before 20, 25 years, there is there on Google. There was a havoc that people will lose the jobs in the bank. I think today there are maximum opportunities in financial sectors and bank, right? So the level will be changed. The kind of job will be there, which will not be labor kind of job, but more towards using your IQ, right? So that will be my answer here. The shift of the job will be always there, which is there in every, I let me take a freedom here to tell one particular small things from a book, that before 30 years, it was like, suppose in my dad's case, it was like, suppose somebody is working in State Bank of India, or let's say post office, it will be lifelong, right? One job will be there lifelong. They retired from SBI, let's say. Now in 21st century, there is an, all the executives, there is a buzzword. Every 5 years, the executives change the job. In industry, in education institutes, everywhere, every 5 years or 7 years, roughly, people change the job. Because they feel that if they are not changing, it means you are obsolete. So trend has changed. Nobody in 21st century, ideally executives, I'm telling, will retire from the same job 30 years or 40 years, which was the trend. The future which is coming is totally different. The future is every 5 years, you need to change your profession. Today you are teaching profession, tomorrow because of Corona, teaching will wiped out. It will be online teaching, maybe something else. Okay, so you need to change your profession every 5 years. So that kind of more challenges will be there, but at the same time, more opportunities as well. So nothing is going to stop, right? So as I given an example of bank, more opportunities in bank. So there are more opportunities will be created. For example, autonomous car driving. So we feel that, a lot of people will lose the job, those who are drivers, right? But there are several opportunities. You can imagine this particular car knocks someone on the road. Who is responsible? The person who has developed a car, developed an algorithm, or the person who is the owner of the car? We don't know. So there are thousands of openings in law. If you want to use autonomous car, what are the problems which are to be solved in law? So there are more opportunities in that. So there will be a shift of the jobs, right? But jobs will be more and more, I'm sure.
Now, sir, the next question is that do AI and data protection go together? Or how should we have, a balance between AI and data protection? Is AI hampering our data privacy?
Definitely, yes. AI is definitely hampering our privacy. As I mentioned, Google knows more about me compared to my wife, I'm sure. What I do on my cell phone, or whom I call, or what Amazon application I use, or what I purchase. So AI knows better than me. So there is an issue of privacy, but now the governments are coming up with the solution. They are having privacy preserving laws as well, which is implemented in Europe, but it's going to be there in India as well. So yes, the question is very, very important, that privacy is at the breach, particularly in healthcare sector and finance sector. There are a lot of openings now, how to use privacy preserving AI algorithm, how to develop privacy preserving AI algorithm. So there are more opportunities again, but the question is very well taken that there are a lot of issues with the privacy right now.
Yes. Now, the next question, which has been asked again and again, is like that: why don't, again the same theme, that why are we not applying AI to solve our day-to-day problems like road transport or managing traffic or
right now Google is giving you indication that there is a traffic jam ahead, you take an alternate route. So that is definitely an application of AI. So we are using, but if you are finding that people are not using, it's good. You can start your own company and try to solve that. That will be my answer.
Yes. Now, again, a very basic question, that what is the difference between RNN and CNN? So basically, how to find out that which application basically needs to be solved using CNN and which application needs to be solved by RNN. Again, in this, I would like to add something, that which applications do really need artificial intelligence for solving them, and which applications might need deep learning for solving them.
Okay, so the answer to the first question is wherever there is a time is a factor, or whenever the sequence is important, at that time you need to use RNN. And where it is not important, CNN is okay. For example, if you want to just recognize an image, CNN is okay. But if you want to translate English to French, RNN is mandatory, because you cannot translate word by word. You have to read the entire statement or maybe entire paragraph before you translate. Otherwise, meaning will be lost. So in that case, you need to remember the previous words and previous statements, right? So the memory is not there in case of CNN, but there is a theoretically infinite memory is present in case of RNN. So wherever there is a time involved or sequence is important, you need to preserve the order of the sequence. You need to use RNN. There are second question was very interesting about where to use AI and where not to use AI, right? So wherever there is a simple problems, there is no use of AI. If the problems are messy, which cannot be solved simply, then and then you should use AI. So finding a messy problem is always a challenging task. So finding a right problem to solve, as again and again I'm telling, is a challenging task.
Okay, so the next question is that how efficiently can we use AI in genomics? If we have lots of data of genome sequences, then how we should make use of AI, and what would be the outcome of that?
Yeah, in fact, we are doing one project which I told about with the Australian University, Queensland University. We are doing a project which is funded by Government of India, which is on the same that genomes data are given and you find out predict the particular disease. Not only you predict the particular disease, but you also explain, means algorithm should explain that because of this problem in this particular genes, this was the deficiency and that's what this particular disease has been induced, right? So if somebody is having a genes data, definitely you must apply various algorithms of AI, particularly because the sequence will be important there, LHTM and RNN kind of algorithms. But don't forget that for this kind of genomes data processing, a lot of insights into genomes and science will be required, and a huge processing power will be also required. Most welcome. If they want some help from us, yes, they can contact us as well.
Yes, so next question, and maybe the second last question, is that how explainable AI would help us in future, and especially will all the systems that currently are getting developed by AI, explainable AI would be, a permanent module of it?
Ideally, yes. Most of the systems, if not all, will have an explainable module. For example, you have an application which our BTech students have developed before 3-4 days. There was a presentation. The application is, the customer is asking for a loan, and the loan granting or denial is automated, completely automated using AI algorithm. So once person is granting or rejecting, particularly in case of rejection, the customer would like to know that why it has been rejected. So your AI algorithm will reject that, but why? That to be explained. So if there are 24 parameters, which was there in application, so I remember the AI algorithm needs to explain this condition was not met, your credit history was bad, or whatever is the reason, that's what it has been rejected. So this is explanation by AI algorithm. For example, if you're developing an autonomous car and the car meets with an accident, then one has to find out the cause of that once you go to the legal case. And so you need to find out from the black box which is there in the car that what has happened. So that explanations by the algorithms are mandatory. if AI algorithm is suggesting that this particular disease is diagnosis for this particular patient, okay, and then medicine is given, and let's say something happens to the patient, then one has to find out that as well. So the explanations are mandatory in most of the critical, mission critical applications in case of AI. I will add here, because my BTech student have done this, is this credit risk application whereby algorithm is predicting that loan is granted or not granted. These explanations are finally stored in blockchain by the students, so that if there is a legal case filed by a student or by a rather applicant, okay, then we can verify the evidences which are present in blockchain, because blockchain is ideally supposed to be an immutable record storing mechanism. So explanations are stored in that, and once there is a legal case is filed by an applicant, the law mechanism can find out that and verify that as well. So this was demonstrated by our BTech students. It has been implemented completely.
Now, so the last question is that what is the concept of transfer learning and how effectively it is changing the predictions which are being given by AI/ML applications?
Okay. So transfer learning is nothing but something has been learned earlier by an algorithm. You need not to do it again. It's like in a rough way, it is object-oriented programming, reusability, right? So whereby suppose I have a database of 10,000 images and I have trained the network. So network is knowing all the 10,000 images and it can classify very well, which is available. Let's say ImageNet is available to download from GitHub. I got a new image, which is not out of the 10,000. Then I need not to train the network again, because only some fine tuning is required to be done. So I take all the parameters of the network as it is. I use some of the new images and fine tune the network. So ultimately transfer learning is nothing but whatever has been learned, no need to do it again. So no need to reinvent the wheel. That's the best answer for that. So there are several ways of transfer learning. Of course, you can learn from a lot of blogs in that case.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we would be stopping here with the question answering session as well. And a very huge thank you to all the students who have actually joined in today, have heard the session, as well as also very thankful to all the participants apart from students, that is IT professionals who have joined in, as well as the faculty members also who have joined in, because when the students are so inquisitive regarding learning AI and machine learning, there is an added responsibility on us as faculties to be the facilitator to them in this journey, where we also have to learn AI and machine learning, and make them also understand that what are the proper ways of using AI and machine learning. It is not so that the trend is of AI and machine learning, so we all should be running after that. Instead, we have to use our own expertise and see that how AI and machine learning can be used in our expert domains. That is what is very, very important currently. So this is basically an initiative by Symbiosis Institute of Technology, where we have started a series of webinars, and we are trying to create an awareness among all the what we can say the masses, especially the younger generation, because there is lots and lots of misinformation that is available currently regarding which streams to go for, which career to choose for, why only AI and machine learning, is it so difficult to learn. So as we are a very research intensive institution, and where definitely because of Dr. Kotecha, we all are somehow working in this domain, we thought that this is the right time as well as the right platform where we should help all of our colleagues who are working in various engineering colleges, as well as the students who are currently in that dilemma of what to learn and what not to learn and from where to learn. So we are continuing these web series, and we can say that these webinars, next webinar would be on 9th, which is especially for first year students as well as for the lateral entry students, where they are currently too much into the confusion that whether an engineering would be a proper career for them to choose post COVID. So we would be taking on various questions regarding how to choose a proper career and why to choose engineering, what are the career avenues. And next, on 10th, we have a webinar especially for the students who are in the final year or third year, because again, due to COVID, there is lots of uncertainty that has been introduced into their career path as well. So we would be talking about that what can be the career avenues after completing engineering. And for this webinar, I would be joined with the esteemed head of the departments of various departments such as computer science, electronics and telecommunication, and mechanical engineering. So hope you all would be benefited by these webinars also. Now, if you have any kind of questions, or you would like to, ask more questions to us or get some clarification, we will be happy to help all of you. So on our website, there is a facility given known as Talk to Us. You can just go there and fill the form, and we will be getting connected with all of you and trying to answer more and more questions of yours. If you have any kind of confusion regarding the career as well as the stream to choose for, or the kind of professional courses to go for, and all these things. So I hope that all of you have gained a very good insight by today's webinar. And Ketan sir, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us today for the session. As well as I'm also thankful to all my colleagues, Dr. Satish, Dr. Shraddha, Dr. Shilpa Gite, Professor Pooja, Professor Priya, because all of them have, helped immensely to make this webinar happen today. And, this journey of us reaching to you has been not possible without, the efforts and the coordination that has been done by all my faculty colleagues. So thank you so much, everybody, and hope to see you all soon in the next webinar on 9th as well as on 10th. Thank you so much.